I keep hearing people talk about frictionless workflows, but I don't think most of us are actually looking for zero friction. I think we're actually looking for less overwhelm, fewer walls to the creating process, and a way to come back and keep creating when everything feels like too much. It's more a question of how can I make this process simpler when I'm coming from a place of burnout, overwhelm, or even just a lack of motivation. And here's where this gets really interesting, this conversation about frictionless workflows. When we hear the word friction, we automatically kind of think all friction is bad. We need to get rid of every kind of friction. Go away friction. But that's actually not the case. So let's think about this. You're in the woods. You're on this outdoor adventure, touching grass, but bring allergy meds. But you're touching grass, you're out there, you're in the woods, you're gonna make a campfire. You're gonna rub those two sticks together like, that's what everybody does is rub two sticks together. That's friction. Friction can create that spark. Spark could be symbolize an idea. It could be inspiration. It could be motivation. The friction of a creative process might spark something new or fresh or a new idea. Spark, ding, the little light bulb that goes over your head. But there's also the case of friction eventually sets the whole thing on fire. That's what friction does. There's certain safety measures and different types of things that I can't think of an example for right now. That's if the friction occurs, fire will occur. I mean, it's same thing with the sticks. It'll eventually catch on fire, burn the whole thing down. So my point in that, I don't know what that was, but my point in that was that there are some friction that's good. There's some friction that's bad. Even the Bible talks about friction. Iron sharpens iron. That's friction. They're rubbing against each other, but it's in that instance is the molding and shaping of us into something better. Same example with the potter's wheel. The friction molds and shapes. So some friction is good, some friction is bad, but there is a difference between friction that sharpens you and friction that burns you out. So what I feel like creators are really meaning when they say they want a frictionless process, a frictionless setup. I've even been saying this recently. I'm on this journey to find a frictionless workflow. That's why I'm making this video. But when I got to thinking about it, what I'm really talking about is I want less overwhelm when I go to do my setup or my process or my workflow. I want a faster process, and then I want repeatable results. That's really what I'm going after when I say frictionless. It's not that I want absolutely zero friction or no work or no effort. And I don't think that's what most creators are talking about when they express this need for simpler either. It's more about having a way that we can create that doesn't absolutely drain every ounce of energy that we have left, especially if you're creating from a place of low capacity right now. And this matters infinitely more when you're in a season of burnout, which I'm currently in. I'm currently trying to recover and climb out of extreme burnout in my life. And so when you're in a place of burnout, everything feels like too much. You have a work project or you'll have something work related ask you the simplest thing. Can you do this one thing? And you're just no, it's too hard. It's too difficult. It's too last minute. It's too, you just kind of explode on it. That's because you're in that burnout state. And then even when it comes to something that you're wanting to do, a hobby or your side project or your creative video stuff, even if that's not what you do for work, or if it is, when you're in burnout, even things you want to do become way more difficult. And sometimes that's not always laziness, or it's not always just a lack of discipline. It could just be that your body and your system is hitting a wall before you can even start the process. So let me ask you a question. Comment down below, what is your biggest struggle right now in your process, in your workflow, in your setup, in your creative flow? What is your sore point, your hardest push through point right now? For me, it's that getting started. It's actually expending the energy and effort to start. And it's extremely frustrating because since I'm operating from a place of low energy, low capacity, and burnout, I can have ideas and I'm I'll be so excited about this idea. It's, I've got all the things, I'll bullet point some stuff out, I'll talk to ChatGPT and get the video organized with my thoughts and the flow and the call to action and all the stuff. And then when I actually go to do it, or it's time, I'm all right, I need to film the video now. I have the idea, I'm excited about it. I hit an absolute wall. It's been happening to me every single time lately. I can't go in to sit down to film. I can't set anything up. It's just the feeling of attempting to start is overwhelming, and I'm just no, I can't do it right now. I'll do it tomorrow. I just can't do it today. I can't do it today. I'm not in the mental space for it. I can't even approach it. And that'll go on for several days until I literally just force myself okay, I have to go in there and I have to film this video. And then at that point, when I'm forcing myself to do it, I've lost a lot of like the freshness, the readiness, the motivation, and the excitement about the idea that I had. And a lot of times that comes through in the video that I'm not as excited about it anymore. So what I'm trying to do is ask myself some of these questions of like, what part of my process is causing that much friction for me? Because I'm having such a hard time starting after I have an idea. Can I simplify something in my setup, my gear, my lighting, my studio, my set design? What can I simplify in some form or fashion to reduce some of that friction? There's always going to be friction when you're starting something because an object in motion, requires more energy to get in motion than an object that's already moving. So there's always going to be starting friction. But how can we as creatives find things in our process? Maybe you can ask yourself some of these questions. What friction is actually sharpening my creative craft, and what friction is actually burning me out every single time I do it? What parts of like my setup, my process, or even like my expectations needs to be adjusted so that there is less friction? And there's so many different examples of friction that you may be experiencing. Having too much gear to set up, too many decisions. The editing feels like just too much to do. Maybe you have to clean and rearrange your room every time. That's a lot of times one of my biggest frictions is like I can't feel like I can start because I need to rearrange, clean my studio, set up a new shot. A bunch of stuff's got to be put away. And that's like a huge one for me. And there's also like overthinking the title, thumbnail, and hook. There's so many different parts of the process that introduces friction. And of course, I don't have the answer to this question yet. I'm on the journey of trying to figure out how to have a frictionless workflow in my life. I'm trying to figure out a process that works when I'm not at full capacity, but the process still allowing for depth and meaning and excellence, but not having to be perfect, not having to feel like I'm a machine just cranking out. I want this to still feel human so that I can create like a normal human with capacity and balance. But I'm really curious to hear from you. What is your hardest part of your process right now? Is it the filming, the editing, the being on camera, trying to talk to a camera, being open and vulnerable, being seen, dealing with, other people's perception of you and comments? Is it staying consistent or not having enough energy to film? Let me know in the comments down below. So that's my thoughts about this whole frictionless conversation that's happening online right now, especially in the creative world. I don't think we're actually asking for zero friction. We're trying to remove the friction that keeps us from starting at all. We want to keep the friction that sharpens us, but remove the friction that burns us out completely or sets the whole thing on fire. And it's really about building a sustainable creative life. And sustainable creativity is really not about no effort being put into it. It's about creating a process that you can come back to that's repeatable and sustainable for a long period of time. And maybe if we go on this creative journey together of trying to figure this out, we'll somehow discover how to have the right amount and right kind of friction in our creative lives. And if you related or connected to anything in this video, be sure to subscribe so you can become a part of this community. And then if you want to, check out this video right over here.